In this video, we're talking about 3 cities here in Utah that people are moving to. We're seeing lots of people move to these 3 different cities, and I'm going to give you a breakdown on why people want to live in these areas, why they're so amazing, and why people continue to move here from out of state looking at these 3 cities. What's going on, everybody? My name's Cody, your favorite Utah realtor. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about 3 different cities here in the state of Utah that people love living in. There's a lot of different pros and cons to these different areas. I'm going to give you all of that information here because if you are thinking about making a move yourself, you might want to consider one of these areas. If you are in that position and you're looking to buy or sell real estate, maybe you're coming from out of state or you already live here in town, then make sure to reach out to me. My team and I service the entire state of Utah, and we want to be your trusted real estate resource when it comes to buying or selling real estate here in the state of Utah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into number 1 here on our list. So the first city that I want to talk about here today is actually going to be 2 different cities, maybe even 3, that are kind of grouped into one metro area. I'm talking about Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, and Lehi. These cities right here are extremely popular right now, and I want to start off by showing you actually where we're at here on the map. So if we take a look here, I want to actually zoom out a little bit and show you where this sits within the Wasatch Front. So you have downtown Salt Lake City right here. This whole area here is going to be Salt Lake County. And then everything south of that, you can see there's a little bit of a mountain range that kind of cuts across right here. Everything south of that down by Utah Lake is going to be considered Utah County. So the cities that we're talking about here today are going to be Saratoga Springs, which sits right here in the middle. You've got Lehi up to the northeast, and then you've got Eagle Mountain out here. There's a little bit of a pocket of housing out this direction, you can see here. But then there's also this area up here, which is also considered Eagle Mountain. So you have 2 parts of Eagle Mountain, right? So here in Saratoga Springs, the cool thing about this is it kind of hugs the northwest corner of Utah Lake. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that here in Lehi is considered kind of the heart of this Silicon Slopes, right? This is kind of the tech corridor. There's going to be multiple office buildings here for a lot of the big tech companies that you know, such as Adobe, Oracle. Oracle's actually up here, and then there's a bunch of other, smaller but still relatively well-known businesses here along the I-15 corridor. So there's a lot of tech workers in this area. There's a lot of highly paid employees, and that also brings with it a lot of opportunity. If you're in that industry, you might want to consider living here close to Lehi. If you move over here to the east side, it gets very nice. Highland and Alpine are extremely nice areas, but are quite expensive, to be honest. So a lot of people choose to make the move over here to Lehi and Saratoga Springs, and then even out here to Eagle Mountain. So you have the ranches out here in this area, and then you've got City Center, which is this one here. My personal favorite is going to be down here, kind of on the west side of Utah Lake. If we actually just zoom in here, let's just drop our little guy right here and show you some of the views that you can get here. So if we bring our little guy over here and we take a look at the street view here, you can see that this was actually from 2015. So this whole entire area is built out now. You've got the golf course that runs right here. There are homes here in this area, but this is the type of view that you can get here in Saratoga Springs. One of the best things about this, why it's such a popular area, is you can get amazing views here. You can see the lake. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see the lake down here on the bottom. You can see houses at the bottom of the mountains here over on the land, and then you get the mountain view as well. This picture really doesn't do it justice. When you're standing out there in Saratoga Springs looking at this view, whether it's in the summer, it's in the winter, you get absolutely amazing views, and it's pretty crazy to see what you can get there, right? You can get that type of view and only spend $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 on a home. Of course, they do have $2 and $3 million homes down here by the lake. There's a couple of options for that, but you don't have to spend a lot if you don't want to, and you still get to enjoy those beautiful views. So just a couple other things about this. You have Redwood Road that kind of runs right down the middle here. They're going to be extending Mountain View Corridor, which is this 145 road that you see right here. This is going to come down. They're going to swing it through all the way down through this way, where you can kind of see this little line being drawn, and then up here on the hillside where this line is at as well. So that kind of wraps up Saratoga Springs. That's why it's such a popular area. Now, obviously, I talked about a lot of good things about this area. Some of the bad things is that it's going to be windy. It's known for being windy out there. I think that's primarily because of where it sits within, the mountain range here. You do have kind of this smaller mountain range here. And then you're also going to find that you're going to get a little bit more bugs and mosquitoes out that way because you are closer to the lake. I don't think it's necessarily anything that's super concerning. It's fairly dry here, so it doesn't become a huge problem, but you will see that more in this area compared to, like, let's say if you're up here in Sandy, right? So that's one thing to kind of consider about Saratoga Springs that you have to keep in mind, or even Eagle Mountain. The further away you go from the lake, the less of a problem that's going to be. But just keep in mind that this is a desert area and it is relatively new. That's the other thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to these developments here in this area. It's still a new area. You can see that a lot of this land is still being farmed. If you want to get outdoors, you're not going to have any issues with that. But if you're looking for, all these entertaining things, you're looking for like a downtown area where you can just go out and enjoy some, a nightlife or whatever, you're not going to have a lot of options for that. I also hear relatively often that there's kind of a lack of, higher end or nicer restaurants. It's mostly just franchise chain food restaurants out there. So you're going to have to travel into Lehigh or potentially even over to, Provo Orem or even into Salt Lake to get some of those nicer, higher end, more unique type restaurants. So that kind of covers our number 1 on our list here. Let's go ahead and jump into number 2 and talk a little bit more about a different area. So for this one, we're going to actually move all the way to the southern part of the state. Now, I've talked about St. George before. I actually have a dedicated St. George channel here on YouTube. If you just type in living in St. George, look for the picture of my face, one of my videos will pop up, relatively close to the top, and you can actually find my channel where I talk exclusively about this area, everything you need to know. We're seeing a lot of people actually make the move to the St. George area because it's just an entirely different landscape, right? You can see all of the red rock, which southern Utah is known for, here in this area. So you've got Sand Hollow over here, you've got Hurricane, which is a small town up here, and then you've got the St. George and Washington area, which also kind of includes Santa Clara and Ivins, right? So you can see this red rock that you get out here. If you go up north, if we go back here to, Salt Lake, kind of the northern part of the state, you can see it's very green, it's very deserty. That's what you're going to expect to see up here in the northern part of the state. But as you move south, once you kind of cross through Cedar City, which is right here, it very quickly becomes this red rock desert that a lot of people, have seen pictures about. So talking about St. George, some of the pros and cons to living in this area is it's kind of a smaller town feel. I guess that could be a good thing or a bad thing, just depending on who you're talking to. I think most people really appreciate that. If you're considering making a move here, a lot of people like that. They think that St. George is just the right size where it's still big enough to have a regional airport. You still have a Costco. There's, talks of building a second Costco somewhere down here on the south end of town. So you still have a lot of those, bigger amenities that you're looking for, but you do get kind of that smaller town feel, which a lot of people appreciate. The other thing that people love about this area is it's extremely easy to get outdoors and enjoy nature, right? I mean, to get from one side, if you're over here in Santa Clara, to get to the complete opposite side of the metro area only takes about 30 minutes. And you can see that the whole entire area is just surrounded by nature, right? There's many roads that head up into these mountains, into the hillsides. You can come over here to Sand Hollow, which is just a short drive away, probably 15 to 30 minutes, depending on where you're coming from. And then you also have all of your national parks, right? If we zoom out a little bit here, you're going to see the Grand Canyon, you're going to see Zion, you're going to see a whole bunch of options, right? You got Grand Staircase Escalante, Grand Canyon over here, Grand Canyon National Park, and then you've got Zion up here as well, right here. So you've got Zion National Park right there, and really, I mean, you can get into Zion in about, I don't know, probably 45 minutes from the St. George area. You can get to, the starting point of a lot of trails up there. So that's why people love living there. Now, some of the downsides to living in St. George is that it does get very hot in the summer. This does mean that you get pretty nice winters. Winters are actually very mild there, but it does get hot. In the summer, it's not going to be uncommon for it to be 110 in the middle of summer, at 2 o'clock on a July afternoon. So it can get very hot there. It's very dry. That's also an adjustment for a lot of people. There's also, a water shortage in the area. So that's something that a lot of people are concerned about. I'm fairly optimistic about that. I do think they're going to, put in place some different things that are going to help solve this problem, but that is something that you have to consider if you're making a move to this area. If you really want to go small town, you can actually come up here to Hurricane or Laverkin. I don't know why it's pronounced that way, but it is. It's pronounced Hurricane. This is going to be really small town, kind of feel up here, but there are new homes in that area and they're still relatively affordable. That's a great thing about St. George is you can spend, $1, $2, $3 million if you want, but you can also get a really nice home for $500,000 to $800,000 here in the area. So there's a lot of great options. You can either come down here to the Southern Parkway and find these little pockets of new homes just like this right here on the Utah-Arizona border. Got another one right over here. So there's going to be lots of options for you if you're considering moving down this direction. Now, the last one that I want to talk about here on our list, we're actually going to go back up north and talk about a place that I'm a little bit biased about, but that's going to be Sandy and Draper. So I actually grew up here in Sandy, and I live in Sandy actually to this day. So I'd grown up in Sandy. I moved away when I was about 14 with my family, and then I ended up living all over Salt Lake County. I've lived in numerous different cities here in the county, and then ended up back in Sandy about 3 or 4 years ago. So I personally am a little bit biased about that. Just have to, throw out a disclaimer, but it's because it's such an amazing area to live. I really love living here, right? I should mention that I would also consider living a little bit further south here. I think there's a lot of great housing options. The schools are good, entertainment's good, restaurants are good. There's a lot of options kind of on the south end of Salt Lake County here, as well as Utah County on the north end. But I do so much business in Salt Lake City and even up here into Ogden, into Davis and Weber counties, that it just makes more sense for me to live here in Sandy. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So you've got Sandy, and I'm actually going to group in Draper here as well, because it's a very similar feel, but it's going to be a little bit newer and a little bit nicer. So for a good single family detached home here in these areas, you're probably looking at spending somewhere between $700 to $1 million. In Sandy. In Draper, it can be a little bit more expensive. You might be like $800 plus to get a really nice home. And if you want to go up to, $1, $2, $3 million, maybe even $5 million, you can find really nice homes here along the East Bench that are going to fulfill all of those needs that you're looking for. So the great things about living in Sandy is you've got Dimple Dell Regional Park. I actually just grew up just north of this. That's kind of a major equestrian park here in Sandy. So a lot of people ride horses there. They go hiking. There's great views from this park. So that's going to be kind of one of the main highlights that kind of splits the city here. But you've also got easy access into Little Cottonwood Canyon right here, which leads up to Snowbird and Alta. And then also, from Sandy here, you can come up here, drive up here, and then cut across, and then you've got Big Cottonwood Canyon right here for Solitude and Brighton. So if you're looking to ski, you're looking to snowboard, it's extremely easy to get out there and get up into the canyons, right? Especially if you live here right at the base, you can be at the ski resort in about 20 minutes, assuming there's no major weather or traffic, right? So that's one thing that is really nice about that. It's also relatively close to the interstate. You can get down here to the interstate and to all of this shopping fairly quickly. Even if you're all the way up here on the east side, it's only about 10 to 15 minutes to get down here to the shopping area, to get to restaurants and all of your daily amenities, right? That's one thing I love about Sandy. You also have, if we zoom in here, let's see, where are we? So we've got Walmart. You also have the Real Stadium. You also have the America First Field right here. I didn't know that that was actually the official name of it, but you've got a movie theater right here. Then you've got America First Field. This is where Real Salt Lake actually plays their soccer games. So that's pretty cool to have that there in Sandy. It's right next to the interstate, so it's easy to get on and off, no matter where you're coming from. But that's another highlight of, the area there. As we move a little bit further south into Draper, Draper is, kind of historically has been more of like a farm town, right? If you go back 50, 80 years ago, it was very much an area that was being farmed, and people had horses, they had cattle, and that was kind of the vibe. So you will find bigger lots here. You will find little pockets of land that have still been farmed. You can see kind of all this empty land here in these areas where people still have a lot of land, but the land is quickly running out, right? A lot of this is being developed. You've got a golf course kind of up here on the east side. You've got another one. You've got a country club right here, Hidden Valley, one of my favorites. So there's a lot of great golfing options. And again, you're just super close to getting into the mountains. You have numerous canyons right here. You can see just how many canyons that you've got. You've got this one here, one here, one here, another one here, another one here. It's really easy to get up into these canyons. I know this map doesn't really do it justice, but it's super easy to get up into these mountains and do some hiking. And also, if you even want to go up here to Suncrest, this is where you can get up into the mountains. This is about a 10-minute drive up onto the hillside here, where you can then actually live among the mountains. So with that being said, guys, that kind of covers everything I want to talk about here between Sandy and Draper, and that kind of wraps up the video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to reach out to me, call me, text me, or email anytime if you're looking at buying or selling real estate. Here in Utah, I want to be your trusted real estate resource. And with that said, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.